Okay, right. So building attention and listening skills, what are some of the things that we're going to look at today? So we are going to look at why they're important, 5 top tips, thinking about specific games you can play with children, and then go through any specific questions that you have. So the first thing that we wanted to think about is why attention and listening skills are important. Well, research tells us that attention and listening skills are incredibly important during early childhood, and early years practitioners report that children often come into nursery with limited attention and listening skills. So this is something that has come from recent research. And what we know about child development and cognitive development, children need to attend and focus on a task in order to learn best and deepen their understanding of concepts. So it's very important that we teach children attention and listening skills, because they are skills and they can be learned. It's not necessarily something children just know how to do. It's something they learn from the adult and the environment around them. So this is one of my favorite quotes about attention and listening skills. And as it states, it's a crucial skill for young children to acquire. Listening is one of the basic building blocks of language and communication, and particularly in the early years of education, one of the main vehicles for children's learning. And as well as being incredibly important for language acquisition, play, and learning in general, it's also incredibly important for their social and emotional development. This is because being able to attend, focus, and listen also helps to develop those turn-taking skills in their environment, and they're able to start to build friendships and social relationships, which we know is incredibly important for children and their well-being. So it is fundamental for learning. We know and understand that, and we know it is an issue for children, particularly when they come in for nursery, and it's a skill that we need to start to teach them. So I'm showing you this diagram here. Now, I won't run through all the technicalities of it, but as a starting point, it's really important that we understand where a child's at with their attention and listening skills, because sometimes our expectations might be quite unreasonable for how long they can sit and listen. And, going through this diagram, you can see that between 1 and 2 years, it's very much about exploratory, very fleeting attention, attending to tasks for a very limited amount of time, and not necessarily being able to follow instructions. Now, when they get to 4 to 6 years, this is when attention's more developed. They're able to listen and also carry out a task. And then we have more what's called integrated attention by the time they reach 6 years old. So it is a cycle, and they're able to build these skills as they go along in their learning environment. So if we're going to think about particular ages, this is as a rough guide. Up to 5 years, children will be focusing on activities for around 5 to 10 minutes. And that's an activity of their interest that they enjoy doing. 7 years old, 10 to 15 minutes. 11 and over, then you're moving more to 20 to 30 minutes. So even though when they're over 11, 20 to 30 minutes is a guide for how long that they can focus on a task before they need a break, because then they're going to have to take a break, exercise with their environment in order to go back and focus again on a task. So that's just so that we're very realistic with our expectations of children when they are attending to tasks and listening to instructions from the adults around them. So now we're thinking about what the top tips are. So tip number 1 is about being a role model. We know that children soak up so much from the adults around them. That's how they learn. They learn from the behavior of the adults around them. That's how they build their understanding of the world. And quite often we're in very busy, fast-paced environments. There's a lot going on, and we can be attending to multiple things at one time. So we might shout from another room a set of instructions and then wonder why the children aren't listening. And so it's just very much that we need to model the best set of listening skills and attention skills for our children to start to understand the process of it. So, very much getting down on their level to ensure that you've got their attention and they're in a place to listen when giving them instructions, and teach them to advocate for themselves. So once they've mastered the ability of using language, then sometimes we perceive a child that isn't listening, and in fact they've just not processed the instructions. We might give them 2-3 part instructions, like go into the kitchen, go and grab your coat, then grab your bag and come back through and wait here. That's just an example of things we might ask young children to do, but they can't necessarily hold all that information in their brain at one time. So when children haven't quite understood everything that they've been asked to do, that they can communicate that. They can come back and say, what else is it that you asked? I can't remember everything that I was told, so that they're able to advocate for themselves in their home environment and then in school as well. And they can communicate that to teachers, that they haven't necessarily remembered everything they've been asked to do, and that's okay, because we repeat things a lot, because that's how they learn. So tip number 1 is modeling those good listening skills and supporting children to ask for help. Now, tip number 2 is about having their full attention, and this stage is the first stage, and it's crucially important because we often speak to children when we don't have their attention, but attention and listening are 2 separate things. So attention, as we know, is the ability to focus, but also filter out what's going on in the environment and filter out outside noises. And listening is the ability to hear sound, process it, and attach meaning to it, so we understand what the instruction was. So it's 2 separate things. So in order for children to listen, we must make sure we have their attention first. We can't expect them to listen to instructions when they're not fully attentive to what it is we're asking them to do. So if they are on a device or doing something else, it's important that we stand very close to them, use their name, come down to their level. And a really great way to make sure that they've listened to what it is that you're asking them to do is ask them to repeat it. And when they repeat it back to you, then they've heard. So that's tip number 2. And then tip number 3 is all about using gestures and visuals. So particularly with young children, visuals are incredibly important. So up to 80% of our communication is nonverbal. So that's very important for developing attention and listening skills. So use gestures while we speak. And in terms of visuals, what some parents do and find very helpful is they will have a set of visuals for the structure of the day. We also do this in school, which is very helpful for children. So if they have a specific routine, it will be get up in the morning, brush teeth. You can have a visual of the brush teeth, then we get dressed, the visual of the get dressed, then we have the car, we go to school. So you can break down their day that way, so they know what to expect from the day. But if there's a specific task that they need to do that has more than 1 part instruction, break it down into small steps and use visuals to support them with that. And tip number 4 is very much about using praise with children. So young children, obviously we know, love to please adults and respond incredibly well to praise. So we need to be quite specific. You'll see teachers in school saying to children, good looking and good listening, particularly down in FS, because that's the skills that we wanted children to develop. So we're being very specific with what we're praising them for. So instead of saying just well done, good listening, this is what I'm seeing from you. that's helping you to develop your attention and listening skills. So really highlighting when they are showing good listening skills means, of course, they will be more likely to repeat it in the future. And tip number 5 is to play listening games. Incredibly important, and to make it fun, particularly with young children. There's so many things that you can do at home and that are fun activities that are helping children to develop their attention and listening skills. So here are just some examples. Going on a listening walk, so when you're in the environment, supporting children to see what it is they can hear and name those things. Playing games such as Simon Says. There's particular story times that support that. A freeze dance, and also there are programs on YouTube that help children to identify particular sounds. So they are fun activities to play together as well. But there are so many different activities that we can do with children to build those attention and listening skills. So if you want some further advice on things that you can do at home, please do direct message us, because I have toolkits and resource boxes of so many things that you can do at home to support your children with those things. And if you want any particular advice for your child's specific age, also direct message us, because I have lots of resource sheets for children of different ages. So that way it's very specific to your child. So now we're going to think about the questions that you asked in a moment. Here they are. So these are the questions that you asked when signing up to the seminar. So I just wanted to go through these to ensure that we've addressed them in some way or another. Now, hopefully we've addressed them with those top 5 tips for building children's attention and listening skills. But there might be some other things that we can think about within these questions. So what about kids with neurodiversity? Can we apply the same strategies? Absolutely, yes, we can apply the same strategies. I think the same fundamental foundations are there. It just might mean that we need to break things down further. Our language might need to be simplified more, and we might need to use visuals more for children with different needs. And that's the same for the question about how do you get a child with ADHD to listen to you? Again, if attention is something that a child really struggles with, we need to be thinking about how we're breaking tasks down. Also, giving children choice in the activities they do will be a great motivator for them. And having our expectations. So we know as adults close to children how long roughly they can engage for on different tasks. Obviously it'll be longer for something they're interested in, and so that's our baseline, and we build up slowly from there. And the next week maybe try and add an extra minute to that task to then start to develop their attention skills further. You can do this by using visual timers, or we also can use alarms on our phone. Now they're great sort of devices that children have access to all sorts of devices now as well, so they can set their own alarms and they can see a timer, and so you can support them to do the task and say, okay, you see, we set this for 10 minutes, so after 10 minutes then you're able to take a break. And it just supports children then to remain on task, because they can see there how long they're required to what the expectations are for them. What to do if they really don't want to focus or do something like practice reading. So we had a couple of questions about reading, and of course it's going to depend on the child's age to how long they will engage in reading. But I think there are specific things that you can do at home that will be really helpful. So firstly, you can make a cozy reading area at home. We have these in school and it entices children in. So, try and make a space in your home that's got really nice cushions and just a nice sit down, relaxing area, fairy lights, sort of having that as the cozy corner. And also, if your child's really not interested in reading, which not all children are, think about what specific books you can get for them that directly relate to their interests. So what are their hobbies? Do they love dinosaurs? Do they love ballerinas? These are the kind of things that will really engage children in text, and make sure that there are lots of visuals there for children that aren't particularly engaged in reading. Something that they're interested in, something that's visual, and you can always read it together so that it becomes also a bonding activity for you guys as well. So definitely think about those things, and you can also use the timer again with reading and say, the expectation is read 15 minutes, then you can have a break. Another question, how can we help children to do their homework? Similar to reading, I think it needs to be something that's fun for them. Sometimes the issue with homework is it feels like an extra chore, and children have spent a long time at school during the day and might be feeling a little bit tired and demotivated, and that's okay. We don't always want to do extra work once we've finished school. Some children do, other children just like to have a little switch off from that. And I think it's just to make sure that the timing's right for them as well with the homework. It doesn't necessarily have to be as soon as they get home. They might just want that time to have a little break and do some exercise or take a brain break. So thinking about, is it an appropriate time for them to be doing their homework? Have they managed to have a break from learning? And then also thinking about particular interests of theirs and how that can link into the homework, and what they can be rewarded with, and lots of praise really as well. The other things we have, what techniques do teachers use at risk to keep focus, especially with the fixed seating due to COVID? Very good question. We have teachers here that have accessed various amounts of training in supporting children with attention and learning. Children are in very, very good and capable hands here. And some of the things that teachers do, so within the early years settings, obviously down in FS, they make sure the environments are open and really engaging for the children. And as we move up, and you make the point about the fixed seating up through the school, we'll use different strategies. So teachers use brain breaks. So that allows children to get up out their seat, have a brain break once they've finished an activity, which just allows them to be able to refocus again. They also have breaks during the day, regular breaks, so that they're able to be able to come down from focusing on an activity for a long period of time. And other things they do is try and link it to their interests and have a variety of exercises through the day to keep children engaged, and try and also link it to working on projects and groups together is something that really motivates the children as well. So they're just some of the many things that teachers do to support them with their attention and listening skills. But we recognise that breaks are incredibly important for well-being. So what if your child only listens to you when you scold or yell? How to make them serious about listening without becoming more serious? I think I would go back to before we're feeling frustrated as adults. If we can just ensure that we have their attention in the first instance, because sometimes we're giving them instructions, but if they're on their device, they're not quite processing that, so their focus is engaged elsewhere. So really, I think going over to them and making sure you have their attention when given an instruction, and I think to try and make certain tasks and activities they don't want to do into a game or something that seems fun is a great way to engage children into listening and doing activities. So I would definitely try those things. How to maintain the attention span of a child for a longer duration, how to bring discipline for doing certain things in an orderly form. So to maintain an attention span for longer, I think going back to the diagram I showed you earlier and thinking about children across the different age spans and where they're at with their attention. In order to extend it, think about playing some of those games, which I showed you on the slideshow, because they will help to build the attention and listening skills, and also use the visuals for the timers, and you can set 1 week, set an extra 30 seconds or an extra minute onto the task and build it up slowly. So that would be one way to do that with your child. Can you please share tips to calm down kids, especially when they're doing a test or answering questions with time limitation? Okay, I mean, this I'm sure is very common for children. I mean, us as adults also feel very anxious when taking tests. So it's something that can be quite anxiety provoking for children as well, understandably. And I think firstly, I think if this is something that your child is experiencing that's quite significant for them, definitely let their teacher know, because in school we can try and make it as comfortable as possible for them, and so that they're not feeling incredibly anxious and we don't necessarily know about that. So definitely have a conversation with their teacher. And then also, I think having a growth mindset is incredibly important for this, for when children are taking tests, so that children understand our expectations of them are simply to do their best, and that children understand that failure is also a natural part of life that helps us to build our resilience, and it helps us to learn from the mistakes that we make. So I think very much normalizing failure to children as being something that's part and parcel of a life is something that can help them with those test situations, because I imagine the anxiety is around potentially failing or getting a question wrong. And it's really important that we teach children that that's okay. It's okay when they get things wrong. We as adults get things wrong sometimes too. As long as they're doing their best, that's all we can ask for and expect of them. And it's great that your child also can speak to you about feeling anxious in these situations, because that's part of helping them to feel calm as well. Once they have that out in their environment and they're speaking to you and letting you know what aspects of the tests are quite triggering for them, that's a way then to start to support them to have like particular calming strategies. So there are things that you can teach them to do. Now, we do some of these things in school as well, but if there's particularly stressful day coming up for them, there are calming strategies that we use. So we could use particular deep breathing exercise. So that really just helps them to manage their nervous system so that they're able to self-soothe and feel calmer in the situation. The heart rate will start to decrease and the nerves will start to settle. So there are some great activities on YouTube. There's a activity called Zenden, and they talk through with children particular breathing exercises that they can use in order to help them feel calm. Now, your child, you might already know something that works incredibly well for helping them to feel calm and settled when they feel anxious, and use those things too on particular days when that they're going to be under extra pressure or feeling increased anxiety. Can music help children to better listen? Absolutely. Music is a wonderful resource that we can use to support children's attention and listening skills. They're able to pick up rhythm and detect different sounds through music that really supports their cognitive functioning. So I would say absolutely. And particular calming music can also be helpful for children that feel anxious, linking back to the last question. And so that's all the questions that you submitted prior to. Oh, we also have one, about multitasking. And this question is an interesting one, because I understand that we do need to, of course, multitask in particular situations. But when it comes to children's learning, it's actually incredibly important that they try and focus on something. So it depends what the multitasking is. But if the example is they're on a device while doing homework and distracted by background noise, probably isn't the best environment for them to learn. So I think as best as we possibly can, we need to try and minimize those distractions when we're doing homework. Stay away from playing the games on the devices or doing two things at once, because it means we're not fully focused on the activity that we're doing, and potentially that's not going to be conducive for the best type of learning for children. So I think where possible, try and help them focus. If they really, really need to multitask, then I think we need to try and reduce it to doing as little as possible at the same time. So those are the questions that you submitted before signing up to the seminar. There is a couple that have come through here on the chat, which I will look to address now. So I think one of them we've covered on, how to make children listen to us. Follow the 5 tips, definitely, and give that a go, because that will be something that will be helpful. Is it okay to help children do their homework? My view is absolutely yes. It's okay to help children do their homework. It's probably not going to be beneficial for them if you do it for them. However, helping and supporting, if you feel they need it, then absolutely. Just think about the way that you're supporting them so that it's still encouraging independent thinking from them. So it could be that you're supporting them by asking them particular questions that draws out the answer from them, or giving them particular prompts. So I think as long as there's a balance between your support and children thinking independently to problem solve, then that support is fine, because you're scaffolding their learning. And the final question, how to get children to calm down before they start doing a task? Well, I think definitely things that work in school even are things like putting some nice calming music on before children engage in a task. We do that, in different classrooms throughout the school, and they'll listen to sort of like children's calming music, which is really available on YouTube. And this can put them into like a nice headspace before they need to complete a task. You can try the breathing exercises with them from Zemdem as well. That will definitely calm them down before starting the task. And also, I think, a fantastic thing to do with children is ask them what helps make them feel calm. Because we all have our things that are different, and it's not necessarily a one size fits all. So ask your child what is it that makes them feel most relaxed, and then you can do those things with them before starting a task, because I think it's a really pertinent question, because for children to get the best out of learning, they need to be in a calm state, ready to learn. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers all of our questions. And so I hope this has been really useful for you. As I said, if you need any resources or any particular advice around your child, then just direct message us with your email address, and I'll be happy to get in touch and send you things for children specifically at specific ages. So yes, do let us know. Thank you so much for attending this morning's Mindful Monday event. And thank you for bearing with us through the technical glitches. So hopefully next time the technical glitches will be ironed out, and look forward to seeing you guys at the next session. Stay safe, everybody, and take care very much. Bye-bye.